Uh, Paul and Mike, thanks a lot for being on. This is really neat to have both of you guys on. So, a little personal background. Mike Diaz coached me for 3 years at Western Michigan. And it's pretty amazing how people come into your life at the right time, because there's no way I could have developed into the infielder that I was in pro ball if it's not for Mike Diaz. Just I was just so raw coming into Western Michigan, and just we made a lot of little adjustments and learned a ton from Mike Diaz. And then Paul Janish, we played together in the Cincinnati Reds organization, and Yanni's just a guy that you will always look up to, that I did, as a teammate, and just learned a ton from, just listening to him speak, and just the way he went about his business, how professional he was just remarkable. And the career that he had in the major leagues was fantastic as well. I'm just super grateful to have both Paul and Mike on tonight, and you guys are going to learn so much, and we just appreciate you guys taking time out of your day. So I'll just do a little in-depth introduction right here. Just give a little bit more background on where these guys come from. So Mike Diaz is the head baseball coach at Centenary College in Louisiana. And I'll just go from the bottom up. So he coached volunteer assistant. And if anything's wrong, Mike, let me know, right? And Yanni, let me know. But
it's too late.
Well, it comes the adjustment.
We'll roll with it.
The verbal adjustment. But yeah, volunteer assistant, University of Pacific, and then moved across country to Michigan. Assistant coach at College, and this is where I got to meet Mike. Was at Western Michigan in 2001, and then went down to Louisiana. I feel like you covered the whole United States. Went down to Louisiana, and was this associated head coach there for those 5 years. But I think pretty outstanding. The 4-time SCAC Coach of the Year. That's pretty special. And then you've been the head baseball coach there for the last 10 years. I hope that is all right. So over 20 years of coaching experience. A little background on Paul Janish here. Yanni is an assistant coach at Rice University, and is going through. He went to Rice. This is where he went to school. And in 2003, College World Series champion, which is awesome. I mean, that's what a lot of kids' dream is, to play in the College World Series. But Yanni exceeded that and went on to play pro ball. I got drafted in the 5th round by the Cincinnati Reds, and then played 14 years professional baseball, and 9 of those years were in the major leagues. So those are you can see the teams you played for: the Reds, the Braves, the Orioles. But you also played, I think, for, I'm not sure, the Rockies and the Royals a little bit as well.
Yeah.
So that's just a little background on those guys. But so I'm going to start with Yanni first. Just a quick question. Being a fairly new coach, new college coach, do you want to tell us what's been like an eye-opening experience that you've had that you might not have experienced as, like, you wouldn't have seen as a player?
Yeah, I think for the coaching side of things, especially back at the college level, like it was first of all, the way that everything unfolded for me to get back to Rice was just an absolute super fortunate occurrence, and having the opportunity to do it like at my alma mater is something that's pretty cool. But I think the biggest thing was after having had the opportunity to play professionally for such a long time, and I spent most of my professional career watching really good players play as a utility player. But the coming back to the college level, the biggest thing for me that I actually really appreciate about the college level is just the emotion in the game. Like I didn't realize how callous I had become to the game of baseball as a professional player. And then over the course of the last few years of my career, bouncing around and going up and down, and then having a family and traveling all over the place, the game becomes a job, right? And it's just a really different perspective. So I feel really, really fortunate to have kind of gotten back into this side of the game at a level in which, I mean, our guys are, you know, it's kind of cliche, but they don't know how good they have it, kind of thing, right? They're at the stage where they'll run through a wall for you, and the emotion that is at the college level is something that's pretty cool to have been reintroduced to after having played professional for a little while.
So yeah, that's a great point. I mean, that's what I talk to a lot of young kids, and they talk about, or they ask me that question a lot when they say what kind of separates at every level you go up, and it's always like the mental side or like the emotional side. That's the answer I always give them. It's like the mental side and the emotional side. But I like how you said, like, it's you recognized how you were kind of calloused, and I mean I can relate to that. You know, you gotta, because it does become a job. It's a lot of sacrifice and time, but it's cool that you see it like that, and you appreciate your position at Rice. So Diaz, I was going to ask you, I kind of touched on it right there, but on your perspective, what do you see that separates a player, like a high school player going to play in college and a college player going to play in pro? What is there, like a separator between these kind of players?
Yeah, I mean, that's a question you get asked all the time. I think, first of all, man, everybody's got talent that's going up a level. For me, the first thing is the aptitude, your ability to make changes and adjustments with whatever comes with the next level, whether that's the speed of the game, okay, whether that's velocity, whether that's a pitcher that can spin 2 or 3 and command a fastball. And then when you know, maybe it's like Paul said, dude, dealing with going to professional baseball, and it's more of a job where every game, winning and losing, doesn't matter as much like it did in college. So when you look at separators, I think aptitude's the first thing, man. And one thing I see that college players that stick around the game, we got so many guys that want to play college baseball, start out as freshmen, they can't make it. They don't know how to time manage. They don't know how to play and be a part of a team. And there's principles and there's rules that come with college baseball. And some guys either aren't mature or don't have that stick it out or even care to be a part of that. It's special to be a college baseball player, man. Not everybody can do it. When you look at being a student, dude, that's like a job in itself. It's 1A and 1A or 1B being a baseball player. You got to put the same amount of time to be the best you can be as a player on the field that you have to do as a student. And I'm a work-life balance guy. I want my guys to have a good social life too. Try to do those 3 things. Very hard to do, and that's a big separator why college guys don't make it.
Right. And Yanni, you could probably touch on that too, like just to see the separation.
Yeah, I think Mike kind of nailed it, but and I think what gets lost, at least what I've seen in a short period of time on the recruiting side, is, and we're getting subject to it right now because we can't go recruit due to kind of the circumstances right now. But it's the ability to just be a baseball player. Like we've become subject to kind of the showcase type environment on the recruiting side, and travel baseball is a really, really big deal, and rightfully so. I mean, a lot of high school players are provided opportunities that they might not otherwise have. But I think the element of like just playing the game and like really getting after it is kind of become lost a little bit in the measurables of, you know, everybody wants to go to the showcase and, you know, how hard can you throw and how fast can you run? Obviously those things are important, but there's a huge element of like being a baseball player that gets lost in translation, I think. And you know, on the flip side, I think that's one of the really, really cool things about having the opportunity to coach these guys at a relatively young age. Not everything is innate to them. They don't know everything. They don't go to the right place on a ball down the right line every single time. They don't make the right read. So like that element of the game and teaching it, you know, the guys that we were around for a long time were so much farther down the road, and a lot of those things were like breathing, you know, at the professional level, and it's just not the case at our level. And I actually really appreciate that. I like I guess with the experience that we were fortunate enough to have, having a little bit more rubber on the road and being able to provide that insight for our guys.
Right. So Diaz, you talked about like you mentioned like the team aspect of it, making sure they're team players, but how like recruiting, that's gotta be one of the toughest things to pick out for you. And I know you've been an assistant coach and you've been a head coach. To recruit a player like that encompasses those good qualities. How do you find someone like that?
I'll tell you what's tougher. It's tougher looking at the texts from Jimmy Hoyt that I'm getting. Not Hoyter. Anyway, Jimmy Hoyt's a guy in the big leagues for us right now, but he played with Rosie when they were with the Indians. So I got this guy blowing me up. So I just laughed. I had to shout out to Hoyter, dude. I'm laughing. That's my guy.
I don't want to interrupt you guys, but I just had to say what's up. What's up, Rosie?
Hoyter, what's up? Thanks for being on, man.
Oh, I'm just listening, soaking it in. Keep
right.
rolling.
Rose, ask me that question again.
Basically recruiting. And I know you've had different experience too of being an assistant coach, being a head coach. First of all, is there a difference recruiting at all? Like seeing it from being an assistant head coach, but how do you find the good characters, those guys that encompass like the teamwork, the team that will bring team chemistry onto your club?
Yeah, there's a couple different questions in there. The first one is, I think every program's a little different. Head guys are a little different. For me, I tried not to stop recruiting over the last 10 years. I did it for 10, 11 seasons at the Division I level. I felt like I was pretty good at it, and when I found an assistant that I was pretty good at it, maybe I gave him more responsibility. Dude, I love watching baseball. And I'm also, you trust your assistants, but when you're good at something as a head coach, you want to continue to do something. And so one of my strengths is recruiting, finding talent that fits a program. So I want to continue to do that. I've got weaknesses. So when it comes to pitching, I let that guy do that. But so I've been out on the road a lot. The big thing is we got to go out and see a lot of games. Man, I love what Paul was saying. The difference between a showcase guy and a ball player. Oh, man, that's what drives me nuts now. I'll give you a story. Adam Rosales. I'm working for Coach Decker, who's a legend. This is 20 years ago. I'm coaching for this guy. And he talks about he had to see Adam Rosales 5 times because he didn't get a home the first time. Can you believe that? You're going to watch multiple games, and I just need to see a home the first time. Then all of a sudden, Rosie runs a 4.15 or something. That's my guy. He's worth a scholarship. We don't do that anymore. It's great when you get to watch a tournament where a kid knows the outcome of the game. Okay, I'm somewhat joking, but I'm somewhat not. Ask a kid, man, how'd you do? Did you guys win or lose? I'm not sure, but I was slated for the first and second inning, right? I played 5 through 6. So separating ball player from showcase guy is probably the toughest thing out there. Coaches, we get wrapped up in the radar gun. We get wrapped up in the Rapsodo. We get wrapped up in the bat speed. I'm guilty of that too. But at the end of the day, if I can watch, one thing I do, if I can get out and watch guys play games and not see them just in a showcase, I think I'm a lot better at identifying what we need to win championships, okay? But when you look at the majority of the things that we're going to, it's like one-stop shopping. We got 150 to 300 kids at this deal, and you go, watch them in workouts, and you see them for a day. Pitchers throw 12 to 20 pitches. That's it. And that's a tough way to recruit. I think you miss a lot more. I think you see a lot more when you go watch games. I'll give you an example. We had a tournament. First time I've been out this year. I got a young assistant, played professional baseball, 20th rounder, played for me for 4 years, trying to get him to understand recruiting. And what we started to see, we see these pitchers in the first inning. He's like, I like that guy. I like that guy. That guy pitched another 3 innings. And I'm like, man, what do you think about him now? He goes, I don't know. He's still got a lot of upside, got some velo. And I'm like, this dude has been throwing nothing but balls with his fastball. He can't command a fastball, right? But he's stuck on the fact that this kid's 6'6", and he was touching 87 this weekend, sitting 84. And it's a guy that we could get unsigned. And I'm like, man, yeah, we can take him. But, dude, we've got to evaluate this kid on some metric of pitchability right now. And I think we're missing the boat on that, man. I love watching games where the teams care about winning and losing. It's just few and far between. So recruiting as a head guy, I still get out there. The difference for me, recruiting as a head guy and assistants recruiting, dude, all they got to do is bring them on campus. I got to close, right? So the big difference between being a coach, a recruiter as a head guy and an assistant, we're all identifying the same thing, trying to bring in the best players. The head guy has to close, man. He's got to get in there with the family, build that trust in both of them, whether that's parents and the player, but you got to build that trust, be able to close, and get that kid to sign with you. I think that's the biggest difference. No matter how much they like the assistant, if they ain't feeling it with the head guy, dude, that kid's not going to sign. Yeah. And so I think that's the biggest difference.
That's a huge responsibility too. I mean, Yanni, I'm sure you'll be there pretty soon as the head coach, hopefully, but what's your take on recruiting right now? Like, a more specific question, like where do you find like the talent, or where can kids go to actually get recognized by you?
Yeah, so a couple of things for us. We're a unique place. Rice is an academic place. We have some speed bumps recruiting wise. Our cost of admission is high. Like the academic requirements to get in are a lot more difficult than what a lot of places are. So we, if there's 60% of the kids out there can't even come to Rice for various reasons. So like our pool of people that we're recruiting gets cut down a little bit just by virtue of those two things. But with regards to like where we go find guys, we're fortunate geographically to be in Houston, Texas. So, there's obviously a large, a large pool of talent in the state of Texas and close by. So, I would say like 85% of our roster historically has been from Texas, and probably 70% of it's been from the Houston area. So we're fortunate on that front that we have that benefit geographically, but I still think, and I'm really new at this, and I got nothing on Mike over there, obviously on the recruiting trail, but what I have noticed is that you do, I did have the opportunity to go to Rice, so I do know that I know the idiosyncrasies of the university, which I think really help choose guys that are not just good at baseball, but that fit Rice. I mean, we want both, right? But we've had a little bit of an issue with, if you don't embrace our place because for what it is, it's that's probably not going to be a successful situation. So we're doing our best to create relationships, evaluate players, and this may be a little bit of a unique perspective, but I really believe, based on some of the conversation that we've had here with regards to what we're looking for, like we're definitely recruiting talent, but we're evaluating the players and their families as well, because kind of like what Mike was saying, and he knows a whole lot more about creating culture within a college baseball team than I do, but that's what you're trying to do. You're trying to create culture, and there's an element of, look, I want really, really talented players, but there's definitely like an evaluation of, look, if I don't care how good you are, if you're going to make it, because we're looking for the best team, not necessarily the best player. And I say that cautiously because I don't mean that in a bad way, but it's definitely part of the evaluation.
So Yanni, that's all great information, man. But if you were to do it again, like if you were a player, and you had to list out your priorities of what school you're going to go to, how would you list that out? Is it the coaching staff? Is it the actual school, the name of the school, or is it the playing time you're going to get? Like, what is it?
So I know for me personally, I was fortunate and had the opportunity to go to a few different schools in Texas coming out of high school. Rice was the only one that was going to allow me to play the infield. Everywhere else was going to turn me into a pitcher. So for me, that was a big evaluation. The degree at Rice and the future that was going to provide for me and my family was extremely significant, and was probably just as important as anything else. To Mike's point, the head coach is a big deal. Part of the reason I'm in college baseball right now is kind of like we talked about, is the ability and the opportunity to influence players, but really people, right? Like these dudes, I hope all of our guys go play in the big leagues, but the reality is that's not going to happen. So I really like the opportunity to influence guys. And as a result of that, I think that the coaching staff does come into play. Like parents are evaluating us. I know I've got 3 kids and 2 of them are boys. When we get down the road, hopefully they have the opportunity to do this. But I mean, you're entrusting, at least the way I would look at it as a parent, you're entrusting, to a certain degree, the man that your son is going to become based on his college experience. And I think that's extremely significant. So Mike, no pressure in closing the deal.
So when you do, so for Mike, going back to you about the essentials that you look in a player, I know so there's a difference between, Mike, you and I talked before, but Centenary is Division III and Rice Division I, trying to find the quality of player, how do you, or the experience that the player has, what essentials do you look for?
Man, there's a lot of moving parts in that question.
Yeah.
There's a trickle down. The first thing of talent. I mean, Paul's working with the best of the best. I mean, he's working with the Cruises over there. I mean, third generation now, right? You got guys that are making their decision of where they're going that have legitimate chance to get to the big leagues. So there's a trickle down effect. I did Division I for 11 seasons, but at the end of the day, we're recruiting a less talented kid. I think velocity, athleticism are 2 of the biggest things that you see in Division III that are going to be less. Okay. I think offensively, it's going to be bat speed. It's going to be body, the pure athlete, man. The guys like Paul, I mean, you're not seeing those guys at D3, but what you're seeing is a guy still got to have skill. He's got to have the ability to handle the bat, right? He's got to be able to play defensively. He's got to be able to still make a college routine play. Pitchers, man, they're not throwing 90 for us. Division III is a very weird level in terms of talent separation. Our number 1 this year, pitcher of the year, All-American. He was a senior. This guy's 87, 91, touch 92. Okay. Our number 2, really good high school kid out of Fort Bend, Travis. Why is he with us? He's a 6'5" lefty that threw 79-80 for Fort Bend Travis when they're number 1 team in the nation. He pitched for them. He's their number 2 because he deals. But that guy ain't going to a high-level Division I. Some JUCOs want him because he's 6'5", but he didn't get a lot of love from that. So right now he's 82, 84, touch 5. But the guy can pitch, but he just wasn't getting a lot of offers. Our number 3 want to be a 2-way guy from Pflugerville, Texas. Okay? So he's a 2-way guy for us, 86, 88, right? But then we've got 3 dudes that are 80, 83 that pitch for us. They just fill up the zone with 2 pitches, got a big nutsack, compete on the mound, right? That works at any level. I'm not sure their stuff's going to work where Paul is, but it works real well where we are. So when we evaluate, dude, we're not looking at all those 5 tools, that guy's and OFP in them, and this guy's got a 50, this guy's got a 40 this, 45 that. I'm looking at this. What tool does this guy have that could help us win? Okay? That's what I'm looking for. We're looking usually at 1 or 2 tool guys at our level, and then we're going to develop everything else. I still come from that Division I recruiting mentality. I'll take a dude that's raw, that's 6'1", 6'2", right, and I'll develop him. But at the end of the day, I also got some guys that are 5'9", can't play at higher levels, but these guys can skill it up. So my level is a little different. At the end of the day, this is what you got to do. You got to be able to identify what your goal is on the team that you're at and the level you're at. Centenary Division III is a top 25 program that can go to a World Series Division III, okay? So of the 440 D3s, not every D3 can say that. So we can recruit at a high level of D3, but that isn't going to be the same as what Paul's doing. So I got to identify what I need from class to class, but also what talent level do I need? What tool level do I need? Okay, a Division III sporadic. At the end of the day, we're looking for a guy that can do one thing good for us, and hopefully we can develop some other things. That's my strategy, okay? Vastly different from when I was at Division I and how we're recruiting.
Right. But I like how you, like the intangible of finding someone that's going to win, that wants to come and win. And Yanni, I was going to ask you, I mean, how these guys, especially at Rice, I feel like a lot of guys get drafted out of Rice. They're like bound to go play at the next level because it's such a solid program to go. I mean, I'm not sure exactly how many. I think there's been about 40 big leaguers that have come out of Rice. but how do you keep them focused as a coach at the college level, focused on winning and the team instead of going and playing at the next level already? Keep them where they are, not get ahead of themselves too quickly.
Yeah, it's a difficult thing to accomplish, especially with, of late the Astros have been really good. So baseball fever in Houston is pretty high. But and with social media the way that it is and that kind of thing, it's very difficult to keep kids like present in the moment. But for me personally, I do a pretty good job, I think, of relating to our guys. I'm still not too far removed from the game to where I can kind of relate to them from a terminology standpoint, and also from an ability standpoint. Like, I really enjoy getting out there with our guys and taking ground balls and doing that kind of thing. And I think you just got to keep them honest. I think you got to put them in their place. I try to implement a certain tactful level of sarcasm that will that kind of keep them honest and in the game. But it's a difficult thing to accomplish, and not all guys are as receptive as others, and that's a difficult thing. That's why I really believe, like, you got to have your guys. Like, Mike, you mentioned Cruz. Trey Cruz was our shortstop these last couple of years and just got drafted by the Tigers in the 3rd round. And he's a guy that's had exposure to the game at a very high level from the time he was born. His grandfather and his dad played in the big leagues for a long time, and he has a lot of ability. And one of the things that he did a really good job of and grew over the 3 years that he was at Rice, but he was a team guy. And if I still am a believer that, at least at our level, from what I've seen in a short period of time, we got to have your guys on board, man, because if they're not, it's very difficult to combat not having your better players bought in, I think.
Right. And I think that goes at the even high school level, college level, pro level, every level of baseball, any team sport. I mean, any aspect of life too. You can go further, but it's so essential. So, all right, we're going to open it up to the questions. I see a lot of questions in the chat box. So I'll just start with Adam Stowe. If you want to unmute yourself and ask your question, just know him.
Yeah, thank you, Adam. I appreciate it. I'm a high school coach, and we have 5 kids in our upcoming senior class that have expressed an interest in playing college baseball. And I was just kind of wondering how we evaluate or how we determine kind of which level they should try to target and contact coaches at.
Yanni, you can take, if you're on mute.
Yeah. So I would say, like, for us, and granted, I'm probably setting myself up here because I field a lot of emails, but I would say in particular with guys that if there's a place in mind that they know that they are potentially interested in, shoot emails at the coach. If Adam, if you have a relationship with a coach or a way to get in touch with, like, for example, if they wanted to come to Rice University, like, holler at me, let me know, that kind of thing. But it's a lot of based on the schedule, a lot of the recruiting will take place during the summers now, because obviously we're playing during the spring as well, and the travel ball scene has become so big and that kind of thing. But I would also encourage them to try to figure out when they got a camp that he could that they can go and participate in and get on the field, get around the coaches at that particular college. I think those kind of things are invaluable, and it'll also be probably informational as well, like with regards to whether or not a particular school is a fit, because let's, kind of like we're talking about here, not everybody has the opportunity to play at, some of the top Division I schools in the country, and that's okay. But I can promise you that there's a place to go play,
Yeah, and that's what I love, that it's the opportunity, that there's a lot of opportunities out there. You don't have to just go to select school. I mean, there's a ton of places you can play. Adam, I hope that answered your question.
Thank you.
We're going to go to Eli. Eli, he's a sophomore in high school. Eli, do you want to ask your question?
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Adam. So yeah, I'm a sophomore in high school. I just got done with my freshman year. So as a sophomore, what can I do to start to, like, working on my game to prepare for college ball, or even possible for pro ball?
Mike, you or me?
Mike, you want to answer that?
Yeah, I can take that. It's really cool that you're going to be a sophomore right now and you're doing something like this. So that's a start. I just look at passion in kids, the interest level they have. That's going to serve you well as you go about your high school career into your college career. This is what I'll say, man, and I know Paul and Rosie will agree with me. You've got to find someone that you can trust and someone with the knowledge of the game to help you out. And if that's your high school guy, that's great. If that's your academy guy, that's great. I always joke, man, watch out for somebody who's telling you you're at this level if you're paying them, okay? I can say that because I'm a college coach, but so many guys come to me and say this guy can play at our level. We're D3. And I'm like, that guy can't play for us. This kid's not going to play college. And then you go to Paul's level, and it's just like, man, who's telling you you're a D1 guy? I'm a big shoot for the stars type guy, dude. But you've got to have a base knowledge and an idea of the tool set that it takes, okay? Right now, I can tell you probably got the want, the passion, the work ethic, all these intangibles. That's awesome. If you can get somebody that has a fairly good idea of what it takes to play in college, then that would be a place I'd start, okay? Weight room, that's one of the things I'll say at my level, man. I got these kids that for whatever reason, they're either late bloomers or they didn't do it. And so hopefully they're just late bloomers, and I'm going to catch them on the come, right? In a year or 2 years, I got a guy that guys are asking like, wow, why is this guy at D3? He's a late bloomer. Dude's always been a hard worker. But weight room, speed and agility, I like those at the age you're at right now. And I like getting with the guy that's trusting and not just out for your money.
Solid, yeah. I wish I had one of those guys back when I was playing. No, that's my dad though. You know, to have my back. I mean, it was huge for me to have that. And Brian, I see you're sitting with Eli right now. Just to have your assistance there is monumental.
Absolutely.
That's a great answer, Mike. It's fantastic.
Yes, I think that was great.
Mish, do you want to ask your question about the better place for an average player to get recruited? What was that?
I feel like Paul kind of answered that with going to the school. You know, if you're an average player and you want to play college baseball, you know, would you go to a showcase and keep playing, or would you kind of pick a couple specific schools and go to their camps? I feel like you kind of answered that, Paul, right?
Yeah, I would encourage guys to go to camps if they have it. And here's the other real consideration is the financial consideration, because it costs money to go to these, whether it's a travel team going to tournaments or playing with a travel team or going to a specific college camp. Like, so hopefully family's in a situation where, or that particular kid's family would be in a situation where they can do both, right? But if you got to pick and choose, you know, that becomes a real thing too. That's a real consideration. But and we try to do at least I do. This is probably a fault of mine on the recruiting side, but I try to be as honest as I can be with guys, especially if they take the time to come to our camp, because, you know, there's an element of like, maybe he still has some developing to do, but there's also the element of being forthright and honest with a kid and saying like, look, man, I freaking love your passion and you bust your butt as hard as you can. But if we're being honest, it's going to be a very difficult proposition for you to come play at Rice, you know, and those at times can be difficult conversations, but I think that, at least I tell myself, that those can be productive as well, at least from the psychology of the prospect.
So just kind of off that, you know, I know at these camps, sometimes there can be a lot of players there. How important is it to go introduce yourself to the coaching staff? Because I'm sure, I don't know if they get around to every single player. No,
it should be comes with the invite. Should be something that they all do, and it's just not. And like, to that point, there is a lot of kids and there's a lot of people, and it's not just at a particular camp. If you're on our campus at our camp, we're gonna have a face with a name in all likelihood. But with the amount of people that we cross paths with and the amount of teams that we see, that is an opportunity that needs to be taken advantage of. If you can come, you know, shake hands and introduce yourself in those circumstances, you have a heck of a lot better opportunity of being remembered, if that makes sense.
Okay.
Yeah, that definitely gives that
Thanks.
good first impression. I can imagine just putting yourself out there. That's not easy to do for a young kid, I'm sure. I know that'd be really difficult for you to do. But go ahead, Yanni.
It's not, but it's you can tell some of the, you know, we got to remember some of these guys can be as young as 14 years old and that kind of thing when they're coming to a high school camp. But there's an element of that timidness that is very telling. You know, you're right.
Yeah.
You can't expect a 14-year-old to be as mature as an 18 or 19-year-old, but it's, you know, it's like what we joke about. Like, that's part of the evaluation from the get-go. Like, you meet a guy, is he nervous to talk to me? Well, if he's nervous to talk to me, how's he going to feel in the ninth inning? You know what I mean? Like, if he's nervous around me, I'm going to be at every game. Like, so what are we going to do?
That's a great point. So, Yanni, did you go to camps and like try whatever the showcases and stuff when you're coming up?
So when I was in high school, and I guess you too, because we're about the same age, but the travel ball scene was literally just starting. So my sophomore year of high school was the first time that I played on a travel ball team, and at that time I think there was like 4 or 5 in Houston. So it was, which is a very small number relative to now, but we just went on the tournament scene, and we only went out of the state. Like, when we went to one thing in Tennessee, and that was it. Everything else was in and around Houston or Austin or Dallas, and that was the extent of it. So that was, I never went to any, I guess, showcases per se. I remember in high school I played in the area code games out in California. That was like a big tryout deal. But the landscape is so much different now. It's hard to even compare the two, to be honest with you.
Now, I just know when I was younger, I would always have a hard time at a showcase. I'm not sure if I was trying to overperform or if I wasn't in that game setting and actually trying to play to win type idea. I don't know why, but I would always like airmail balls over to first base, and I would barely get out of the cage when I was trying to hit homers and impress. But that was a tough situation for me to be in instead of just playing the game. But,
Rosie, this is Landon. I would say that's what, you know, when Paul was talking earlier about camps, you know, that's the value in a camp over a showcase, is that, you know, a showcase, you get a small number of reps to showcase what you can do. A couple throws across the infield, you know, 15 swings in the cage, whatever it is, run a 60. But at a camp, you're spending multiple days with these coaches.
Gotcha.
And they have way more opportunity to see you, to evaluate not only you as a player, but your personality, your makeup, all the things that they're looking for, those intangibles. And you can't tell those things at a lot of showcases. And so, you know, I went to, and I'm the same age as Paul, you know, there wasn't a ton of things to go to, but I went to as many camps as possible then, because I think it works both sides. You're developing a relationship. Well, those coaches are getting ready to see you, your abilities and tangibles, all the things they're looking for. But you are also getting to build a relationship with those coaches and figure out how those coaches operate, you know, how they run their program, their practice, their demeanor as they coach. And that's very valuable as a player, to try to figure out who I mesh with and who I want to play for, because we're all different people. And some guys need a different type of coach than other guys. And so I agree that camps for young guys, I think, you know, these showcases have gotten really rampant and almost watered down, and camps are a way that you can really build a good relationship and figure out what you truly want.
Well, that's fantastic, man, because for me coming up, I never went to a camp. And I don't know like the camp structure right now, but that's essential, I feel like, to participate in something like that. Because at these camps, it's not just like at Centenary, or it wouldn't just be these. All right, so Landon Powell is a former teammate. He's the head coach at North Greenville University in South Carolina. But there's different teams, there's different universities at that camp, right? Like if you went to a Vanderbilt camp or whatever, there's going to be a ton of different coaches there for you.
Yeah, so that's changed a little bit, because now I don't think D1 coaches can work D1 camps. So, but if you go to a Rice camp, there's probably going to be a bunch of Division II, Division III JUCO coaches that are working there.
Gotcha.
I know it, like when we run camps at North Greenville, we have other coaches from other programs come in. So, yeah, you're not just only going to that school, but you're getting seen by more than those those coaches only. So, back when we were in school, Rosie, Division I schools could have Division I coaches from other schools working their camp, and that doesn't happen as often anymore.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a good point, Landon. By the way, Landon, good to see you, bro. It's been a little while.
You too. Hope you're good, man.
Dude, life's good, man. The one thing I'll bring up about camps as well that we try to do intentionally is we will run them in some way, shape, or form similar to one of our practices, and we'll actually incorporate like a little coach's game or inter squad, whatever the case, whatever suits depending on the personnel that we have at the time. But and we do that as a way almost to say like, look, this is who we are, and this is what you're going to get if you come here. And if you don't like it, then that's your prerogative. But it's almost like an element of sifting through, some of that character type stuff. And generally speaking, our camps are probably a little bit more, I guess, high intensity than what some college camps would be. But it's very intentional on that part because we're trying to appeal to the right type of kid, if that makes sense.
100%. And talking about like these plays, like you put yourself out there at a showcase or one of these really nice camps, and you get evaluated. But Steve, I think this is a good time to ask your question about the college sports evaluation. Steve, you want to, if you're still there?
Yeah. Hey, Adam, how you doing?
Hey, Steve.
I don't know too much about it. It's just something that I came across like a month ago. I think it's fairly new, but it looks like this organization is doing just what we're talking about. It's basically a camp or showcase that basically gives you feedback and slots your player in a certain, college level. So it seems to me like it's a good idea. I don't know much more than that, and I just was wondering if anyone had ever heard of it. I guess
What's
not.
the name of it?
Yeah.
I threw the link in the
right
chat there. It's college sports evaluation.
I'll touch on that a little bit. I think it's a trap to follow an evaluation from any coach, even if they're a good coach, that's going to slot you as a D1, D2, D3, NAIA, JUCO. One, go ahead and rank those, because I know D3 is always on the bottom. But I've had, 3 guys drafted, right? D3, not D1. Multiple guys play professional baseball or independent baseball, Division III, right? And so it's a trap. I know Landon was talking about D1s used to work D1s. One of the biggest and best camps out there was a Stanford camp forever. 350 kids, 5 days, 20 D1 coaches, and then a handful of JUCO, D2, some D3 coaches. So this was back when I was D1. I actually worked it back at Western Michigan. And they would have on the evaluate this guy and put him as a D1, D2, D3, and that's the worst thing to do. Because one, how do you even do that? What is a D1 guy versus a high-level D2? I know this. Some dudes at Tampa are flat-out D1 guys, D2. Pick the top 10 D2s. They're just as good as some D1s. And the same thing as NAIA. It's like, okay, well, even though NAIA, they get a bunch of kickbacks, there's guys at the NAIA level are playing that were at high-level D1s, okay? JUCO, it's like, whoa, what do you mean by a JUCO guy? You got guys going to San Jack that are looking to get drafted in the top 10 rounds. So it's kind of a trap. At the end of the day, I just go back to what I said to the young man that was a sophomore. You want to find guys that are going to give you a good idea of what your skill set is and your tool set, okay? And then it's up to you, like Paul's saying, like Rosie's saying, pick 3 to 5 schools. If you've got the means and the money, go to their camps. See if you can get evaluated by them. And they're going to be honest with you. If you're a dude for them, dude, they're going to want to recruit you, okay? And so it's not easy to get evaluated, but I think it's a big-time trap to try to go to something and label yourself as that D1, D2, D3 type kid, okay? And the fact that, man, if a guy's got tools he may not be ready to play D1 right now, but man, there may be a D1 that gives that guy a chance because they can take a projection guy or two. All right. And so at the end of the day, man, go to somebody who's knowledgeable about colleges and find out where your tool set is and your skill set right now and see if they can match that up with schools you're interested in.
Yeah, to kind of echo that, Mike, I'll give my like recruiting story, my own personal story when I was in high school. You know, I played on a travel team here in Houston, and totally outrageously coincidentally, there was like 4 guys on that travel team I was on in high school that played in the big leagues, and nobody knew that at the time. But on that team, there was a lot of very good players. So when I got recruited out of high school, you know, there's some of the better schools in Texas. I had the opportunity to go, and my travel coach, that coach who, to your point, like I knew him well, I trusted him. He had a very good awareness of quote unquote awareness of where players would slot in. And when I got offered to go play at Rice, received a scholarship from Rice, I said, man, I'm gonna go to Rice. And this is a confidant that told me, like, you should not go to Rice. You're never gonna see the field. Like, you don't fit there. And I graduated high school at 155 pounds. So 6'1", 155 pounds, like had a good arm, and that was about it. But the reason I bring it up is because nobody knows necessarily. Like, I mean, I went to Rice and played on some pretty good teams. And, you know, had I listened to that guy, I may have gone somewhere else that quote unquote, I fit better. So that's another consideration, you know, and I don't know that it applies to everybody differently probably, but I think it's something to consider. Like when you start talking about letting other people slot who you are, you got to be real careful.
Yeah, how did you get through that? How did you actually like make the decision to go to Rice and not listen to that?
I said, tough break, pal. I'm going to Rice.
That's right. Yeah.
No, it was a unique situation just because of the degree and whatnot. But there was no way, shape, or form I was going to pass up that opportunity. But and also, I had some of the internal confidence that I was like, well, it was just added to the list of somebody who said you couldn't do something, kind of thing, you know.
Yeah. That's awesome.
Rosie, I think we would be remiss not to mention that the landscape of not only college baseball but baseball and all is changing. You know, most of us, the guys our age and this thing that played professionally or college baseball, our goal was very common. We wanted to play in the big leagues. All of us, like, that was our dream. That was our goal. College was, you know, a part of that journey. And some people stopped there. Some people got to keep going and realize that dream of playing in the big leagues. But I think that should be changing for the youth coming up today. You still want to have a goal of playing in the big leagues or whatever it is, but the reality of that happening is getting smaller and smaller. We already know it's way, way less than 1%, right, that are going to get that shot, you know, but they just cut 42 teams out of minor league baseball. And the draft's going to be half as long as it used to be. So these kids that are coming out of high school and their dreams of playing in the major leagues, and they're choosing schools based on only that, I think that might not be the best opinion, and it might not be the best way to think about it anymore. You know, I think kids should start looking more about what the total package they're going to get out of that experience, not just how they can get to the big leagues, you know, but use the game of baseball as a vehicle, not the destination. You know, like I'm not going to this college just because I'm trying to play in the big leagues, but I'm going to this college because of the education I'm going to get, you know, the friends and family I'm going to build out of this, the relationships, how it's going to prepare me for life, you know, the travel and the world that I'll get to see because of this opportunity. There's so many more things than just trying to get to the big leagues. And I think that sometimes I know I had blinders on. And the whole reason I went to South Carolina is because I felt like that was the school that was going to get me to the big leagues. And the game's changing. It's not as much like that anymore. It's, you know, 42 minor league teams just got cut. That's 1,500 jobs that are not available every year now. So getting to that level is getting harder and harder and harder. So college needs to be an opportunity that's going to build your entire life, not just your baseball career.
That's a great point, Landon. That's great. It gives you the opportunity, get your academics, but you can also stay in the game too. I mean, if you wanted to go to college, but you could stay in the game, you can go into coaching. Heck, if you want to stay in the game and go into broadcasting, or if you're really smart, become a GM. You know, in the game, even if it's like a minor league team, but there's a way to stay in the game. It's not just to play Major League Baseball. So I love that, Landon. That's a great point, man.
Hey, Rose, I had another question about recruiting.
Yeah.
And I don't know this answer. And I guess that's why I'm asking it, all right?
All right. Here we go.
All right. So the analytics of a player, with all the analytics out there of launch angle and the bat speed and the break your pitches and all that stuff, do you coaches ever look at that when recruiting a player?
So I'll go. Yeah, I mean, yeah, we definitely look at it just because there's some things. I use it as an element to evaluate because there's some guys that can do things other people can't do, and if they can do things other people can't do, that I want to know. Like if they can throw a ball 98 miles an hour, obviously that's a kind of a dumb example, but like, or if they can run the 60 in this, like not everybody can run a 6.5 60. There's some base level ability that you have to take into consideration. The exit velocity off of the bat, like, you know, if better hitters hit the ball harder, more consistently, period. Like that's just the way that it is. So there's definitely an element of that, but I'd also think at our level, like it's, you know, there's the intangible that we've kind of touched on a lot, this whole deal that's part of the evaluation, but to answer your question, they're definitely part of the evaluation for sure. The metrics and whatnot, they're becoming much more prevalent. They're becoming much more like when I get recruiting profiles from some of our travel organizations, there's like a Google Sheets that has all of that stuff on it, like velocity, 60 time, exit velocity, all of those type of things. It's just becoming so prevalent that I think it would be, you'd be operating at a deficit a little bit not to at least entertain it and at least have an awareness for what it is and what it means, I guess, if that makes sense.
So are you getting those numbers from you seeing it and you watching the kid, or is it from, like you said, like the travel ball team? Like how do you trust that number?
Most of it's a good question because it depends and it can get a little goofy. Like I'll have guys that send me a screenshot of a Rapsodo readout, right, and say this is Adam Rosales' Rapsodo, and there's literally no way to know for sure that it actually was his. So you definitely have to be aware of that, but that's part of the, you still got to go see the guy. You got to see him in person. You got to see what it translates to. But the credibility issue is real, and you just got to be careful, especially in the travel ball world where the coach just wants to be able to say that, you know, he got his X amount of guys to go to whatever Division I college is. So you definitely got to be aware of it.
I think the Division I where Paul's at, he's going to use a lot more than us. We have Rapsodo pitching. We don't have Rapsodo hitting. Okay. So to touch on Paul, I think to have the metrics out there are important because it's the way the world is now. Okay. Some schools are using it a little bit more to recruit than other schools at the Division I level also. I know a pro game is just crazy off the charts of what they're doing and what they're doing with guys' numbers with TrackMan. But I think if a guy has that good breaking ball and he's got this spin rate on there, there's two things you can look at. Hey, that's a plus pitch. And then the second thing you can look at is maybe there's some projection in there. He spins it that good. Maybe there's a little bit more MPHs in that. Okay, so those are two things recruiting-wise I think you can look at. The last thing recruiting-wise, and it's kind of a third thing, if you got two dudes that both 6'1", both intangibles, right, and you see something metric-wise you like more, maybe it's a separator. So you kind of got three things there recruiting-wise that can make a difference. And it's not everything to me, what a guy's optimal spin rate is and his blast. Nobody cares about launch angle recruiting right now. It'd be more raw bat speed, okay? Maybe some from here to here with blast, right? How quickly he gets from here to here. I know some schools are using that. They like that, okay? But as far as pitching, I think there's more stuff going on with Rapsodo and TrackMan and how they're evaluating using them as separators and using them to project out than hitters. in my opinion.
Thank you.
So is there any, I know you said like the comparison, like the 6'1" guy, like really close, but has analytics, when you're recruiting, has it hurt somebody? Like, has it like prevented them? Like, you know what, he's actually hitting the ball well, but his time from point A to point B is not what the metrics say, so we're not going to go with that guy, even though he's producing at the high school level. Like, I don't know if you want to.
Maybe I didn't explain that, but Paul deals with such a finite type of guy, so talented. And here's the other thing that Rice is dealing with. They've got how many more players want to go to Rice than they do some other schools? So all I'm saying is, man, I don't know how Paul does it. He's obviously my type of guy and looking at intangibles and ball player. But when you're dealing with numbers, man, sometimes there's just a separator. Yeah. That maybe that helps out a little bit in the eval. I'm not sure Paul's doing that, but I know some D1s are. Okay. For me, it's not. We use it as just, hey man, this is what it is. That's good. But you know, we've got a wider net we're casting for our program in Division III.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think I'll say this. I think that's a separator, but it's just like any other separator. I mean, academics is a separator, finances is a separator, your makeup and what kind of kid you are, your work ethic's a separator. So it just adds to that extra intangible. I mean, it's measurable that you can look at someone's bat speed or spin rate or one of those things. But I think there's a mixed bag of coaches in baseball that how much they depend on those things and how much credit they give to it. Obviously, a lot of people are looking at it, but I still think there's a ton of coaches that want to see pitchability. They want to see how well he locates. They want to see how well he holds runners and builds his position, things that you can't measure on Rapsodo. And, you know, baseball is a cool sport because it's you know, I've always thought football and basketball, the teams with the best athletes win. And baseball, it's not just the best athletes, it's the most skilled players. It's the most guys that have perfected that skill the most. And so baseball, you can separate yourself even if you don't throw the hardest, hit the farthest, run the fastest. You can be a David Eckstein and be a major league all-star. You know, that's what's cool about the sport of baseball is that, you know, there's been a lot of great players that don't have those tools that go off the chart.
Great point. All right, so we'll wrap it up, but we're gonna ask one more question from Harrison. I think you give credit where credit's due, and I know at Rice, I think it's Wayne Graham, right? Is that right? Is that who you played for, Yanni?
Yeah, that's right.
So I'm not sure. I don't know. So Harrison, do you want to ask your question? If you're still there. Harrison, you just got to unmute yourself.
Yeah, I just was wondering who your biggest mentors are.
Yeah, I'll go first since Rosie gave my answer away. But so it's part of the reason why I really like the college level, and I think we all get into coaching for a different reason. But Coach Graham was at Rice for like 27 or 8 years, and obviously put us on the map. You know, he got there in like 91 or 2, whatever year it was, and you know, like one of the winningest coaches in college baseball history. Well, that's all great, but like my experience with Coach Graham, he was an old school guy that was a very, I still say like his best ability to evaluate people. So like he had this unique, like uncanny ability to know how to push guys and like whether or not he could like really get on you and bury you on a given day and then pick you up the next day versus maybe just not do as much of that to certain individuals. He just knew how to push people's buttons. Now, all that being said, I think that's why he was really successful. For me, what it showed was like, first of all, he was like, had this unmatched passion for the game of baseball, this like ridiculous, like freakish, almost weird willingness to compete. And like, we didn't know it when we were in college, but like we adopted his competitiveness and his toughness and all that stuff. And kind of to Landon's point, don't get me wrong, we had some really, really good players on some of those teams, but we had some guys that nobody else wanted coming out of high school on those teams. And we ended up having a lot of success and, you know, going to Omaha a couple of times and that kind of stuff. And I'm just a big believer that like that doesn't happen on accident. But so from a coaching standpoint, I just think that the time in my life that I was around Coach Graham, it molded my baseball personality a little bit in terms of, you know, the way that I view the game and the way that I, you know, evaluate players in the game in general. So I just, now looking back at that, you know, it's difficult for me to not say Coach Graham just because of how much influence I think he had on like my baseball life.
It's awesome to have that mentor. And Diaz, I want to know yours too, and then Landon, yours as well. But Diaz, you want to go first?
I mean, I'll take it as a coach and not as a player. The guys that Pat and Adam played for, man, Coach Decker, he was probably the classiest guy I've ever met to this day in baseball. I mean, he had a genuine care. And he's a baseball guy. He's a hell of a player in his day. And, man, being in the office, I don't think I ever beat him in the office. And he's there as long as I am at night. So Coach Decker, what I loved about him, he had a work ethic and a passion. I got him from the time he was 60 years old to 63 or 64. So I got him back when he was up there in age. I can only imagine what he was like when he was a young guy. But the thing I love about a mentor, which he was, dude, he wanted to teach me things, but he allowed me to be myself and he allowed me to fail. And when he needed to bring me in and say, hey, dude, don't do that. That's dumb. Be better than that. He was able to do that. But I love the fact that he wanted me to be a better coach. There's a lot of guys out there that try to hide stuff. I don't know why, but they don't want you to grow. And that's what you want in a mentor, a guy that's going to pass on knowledge and allow you to grow, man. But go ahead and slap you when you need to be slapped. And I think Coach Decker, I really enjoyed my 3 or 4 years that I had with him, you know. So that's what I enjoyed about him and him being a mentor.
So someone, I mean, that's what you need. I know that's what I needed as a player, for sure. Someone to put me in my place as well. I mean, Coach Decker was definitely like that for me as well. But Landon, you go ahead, man. We'd love to hear.
I mean, mine would be my college coach, Ray Tanner. And I think that's probably telling why all three of us just mentioned our college coaches, and now we're back coaching college baseball. I mean, that shows you the impact they had on us. But, you know, he was one of my other than probably my dad, probably my biggest mentor in the game of baseball. And, you know, the things I think about him was, you know, he was honest. Like, he was a guy that wasn't going to shoot you in the toes. He was going to tell you the truth, whether it hurt you or not, but he wanted you to understand where you stood. He learned how to adapt with the player and with the times. And I think that's been very important to, you know, Coach Graham was the same way. I mean, he coached college baseball for 50 years. You have to change a little bit with the times. Every generation, every couple of years, kids are different. And you have to learn how to, you know, don't change your beliefs or morals, but learn how to relate with that next group of player. And Coach Tanner he did a great job of learning how to relate with his players as we went through. And then I think the last thing that really stuck out to me about him was the same thing that Paul said about Coach Graham, is just the incredible competitiveness, like a relentless competitiveness that never stopped. And, you know, when I think about anybody that was great at what they've done in life, I mean, it really stuck out to me watching the Last Dance thing on Jordan. I mean, he's almost psychotic competitive. You know, he's so competitive about every little thing he does, which is why he was so great. And Tom Brady's the same way. And you go look at whoever's been elite at whatever they've done, and competitiveness is just at a next level. And my college coach was like that. He did not want to lose at anything. He never turned it off. And, you know, so I think I kind of inherited that from him too, that I'm very competitive still. And, you know, I want my players to always strive. You know, you're not going to win every time, but you sure as hell better try. And you're not out here just to come in second, you know. So it's just that competitiveness really drives you, and it's a fuel that you never fill up that tank of, you know, you can never be satisfied. And it's kind of it's a fine line. Some people take it too far and it hurts them, but some people make it work for them, like Coach Tanner and Coach Graham. So Coach Tanner was my mentor for sure.
Yeah. I mean, that's for young players that are on, you coaches and parents that are on, those are the qualities you should look for in a coach going to a college, whatever college you decide to choose from. But I mean, I was lucky. I mean, I didn't know. I was kind of naive and ignorant about where I was going to play, but to play for a guy like Coach Decker with that competitive edge I was fortunate to land an opportunity like that and to learn so much from him. But guys, I put Mike Diaz's email address in the chat if you guys want to reach out to him, and I put Paul Janish's Twitter and Instagram handle. It's at DiamondFitKatie. That's and Yanni, do you want to talk about is it a speed and agility program you have, the Diamond Fit Performance?
Yeah, that's like a separate business deal, like a side deal that we started. If it's okay, Rosie, I'm going to put my Rice email in the chat as well.
Yeah, please do.
So that for the same deal, I would encourage anybody to reach out for sure, and with any kind of questions or whatever. But yeah, the Diamond Fit thing is a side hustle that we've had the opportunity to start. My wife actually does most of that, if we're being totally honest. But I'll include my Rice stuff as well, and encourage anybody to reach out, and I'd love to chat.
Yeah. Well, you guys are awesome.
Adam, just real quick, I just want to say before you wrap up,
yeah, sure.
This has been an awesome series that you have put on. And for those of us who are coaches of travel programs, of young kids, you, especially you guys who've been here every week, the kind of regulars, you have been our coaching mentors in ways that you will never know. So guys like Scott Emerson, you're like my Yoda, man. I had to schedule a Friday practice, Zoom practice, just so I can pass on the little nuggets that you got. And Landon, I love that you're back with us. It was awesome with you in Dallas, but man, you're able to put like baseball truths into country lyrics. Like you got that thing. And Pat, you've been here week after week, and I love just your earnestness and how you are such a student of the game, even now asking questions of how you can coach better after your amazing career. And Nuke, you're in there somewhere. Awesome. And all you guys are, of course, Kuzmanov's been here. It's been great. Adam, they're here as it's a tribute to you that you've built these relationships and that there's that kind of trust with you. And I just couldn't let the moment go by without saying this has been awesome. And thank you to each one of you for the part, especially you guys who've been here over the 10 weeks or 8, whatever it's been. Seems like forever. But you've been awesome.
Yeah, Matt, and likewise as well, man. You guys are always showing up, and your participation and your support is huge. It keeps me wanting to keep on getting better. And I know this is the last one of the series, but we'll be back probably like September, October sometime.